It's good to have this live experiment. We have a new Mevo camera, which is now focused on the lectern here. We have our previous Mevo camera, which is giving the full auditorium view. We're experimenting with the technology that we have to see what our capability is for having a hybrid service, and it's all a learning opportunity for more than a year of doing things differently. And we're now experimenting with the new technology. How exciting it is to think that we will be gathering together those who are able to face, maybe little by little at times. It'll take a while before we figure everything out in this, as they say, new normal world. But God is good. He has provided many good things. He's provided vaccines. He's provided knowledge of things that we didn't know about a year ago. Thanks be to God for that. It's kind of like spiritual growth. When we begin our walk with Jesus, we don't know everything about Jesus. Some of us may have grown up in families where we heard about Jesus from childhood, where we had the privilege of going to Bible classes, where our parents were believers, and where we had the benefits of being around Christians. Others of us may have not had that opportunity. And whenever we chose to become a follower of Jesus, we had to start from the beginning. Before deciding to follow Jesus, we all had to come to a conclusion about who Jesus was. And that his death, burial, and resurrection made something possible that wasn't possible before. In a book called Unstuck, Timothy Lane talks about a Christian perspective on how a Christian who is stuck in one way or another, maybe they have found themselves falling into a particular attitude which they wish they could shake, but somehow they always trip up when it comes to that particular issue. It could be a relationship issue. It could be some kind of addiction that they are trapped in. It could be something that happens when they get caught in traffic. Despite their best intentions to maintain a low blood pressure, somehow when they get into that situation, they always tend towards words or behaviors that they would rather not have. And some groups of Christians are not able to get along with each other for one reason or another. They began well, but they got up to a point where they couldn't advance beyond a particular pattern. The audience to which the author of Hebrews is writing were stuck in a way. Back in chapter 5, verse 11, he says, About this, we have much to say, and it's hard to explain since you have become dull of hearing. For though by this time you ought to be teachers, you need someone to teach you again the basic principles of the oracles of God. You need milk, not solid food. For everyone who lives on milk is unskilled in the word of righteousness, since he is a child. But solid food is for the mature, for those who have their powers of discernment trained by constant practice to distinguish good from evil. He's telling the recipients of this letter that you began well, but you never went on to maturity. You never went beyond the basic principles of the faith to understand the deeper matters. And not only is your understanding darkened, but your relationship with God, and perhaps even your relationship with one another, is affected by your not growing up in your faith in God. That's why in the beginning of chapter 6, he says, therefore, let us leave the elementary doctrines of Christ and go on to maturity, not laying again the foundation of repentance from dead works and faith toward God, of the laying on of hands, of the resurrection of the dead, of eternal judgment, and other things. There's no need to continuously lay that foundation again and again. It would not make sense if you're building a house to lay the foundation, to let it sit until it's hard enough to build the structure upon that foundation, and then break that foundation up and lay it all again. At some point, you just have to build on your foundation. You have to be secure enough in your foundation in order to go on to maturity in Christ. Now, I think there is some important principles here. In his book, Changes That Heal, Henry Cloud talks about certain important developmental things that have to happen for a person to be healthy emotionally, to be healthy spiritually, to be healthy in their relationships. The first thing they need to have, they need to be securely attached to someone who loves them. Ideally, a child would grow up with a secure attachment to his mother and his father. And secure in that relationship, they would be able to grow normally as a child. The second thing that Henry Cloud says a person needs is boundaries. They need, first of all, to attach to somebody, but then they also, second of all, they need to know that they are their own separate individual. And they know when their person ends and another person begins. They know what they own as their own stuff and are able to discern that from what is somebody else's. The third thing that a person needs in order to be a healthy, well-functioning, mature adult is the ability to deal with good and bad in one's self and in others. How do you deal with the fact that if you look carefully, or maybe even not, you don't have to look very carefully, you will find both good and bad in yourself and in other people? How can you be secure even knowing your strengths and weaknesses? And then finally, excuse me, the fourth thing that a person needs in order to be a healthy, well-functioning adult is to become an adult, to start thinking as an adult. Unfortunately, many people, even though they may be chronologically adults, they've never even taken care of the foundation. They are not secure. They have deep in their heart doubts that anybody loves them. And second of all, they may not have boundaries. They might not know what belongs to them and what belongs to others. Third, they may not be able to deal with good and bad in themselves and others. And fourth, they have never become an adult. Now, I see some implications here. As we move from chapter 6, which ends with the verses, Hebrews 6, 19 and 20, he says, "We have this as a sure and steadfast anchor of the soul, a hope that enters into the inner place behind the curtain, where Jesus has gone as a forerunner on our behalf, having become a high priest forever after the order of Melchizedek." Now, I mentioned in my flock note that whenever I've come to these sections in the book of Hebrews, I've gotten a bit lost in all of the discussion about this Melchizedek. What does it mean that Jesus is a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek? There are some brief references to Melchizedek in Genesis, didn't write it down, I believe it's 14, and Psalm 110, if I'm not mistaken, where those words, "You are a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek." After Abraham comes from defeating the enemies of Lot, Melchizedek comes out, and Abraham offers him tithes and offerings. Chapter 7 goes into some depth of that. Listen as I read from this, and then I'll have some comments. "For this Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest of the Most High God, met Abraham returning from the slaughter of the kings and blessed him. And to him, Abraham apportioned a 10th part of everything. He is first, by translation of his name, King of Righteousness. And then he is also King of Salem, that is, King of Peace. He is without father or mother or genealogy, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but resembling the Son of God, he continues a priest forever. See how great this man was, to whom Abraham the patriarch gave a tenth of the spoils. And those descendants of Levi who received the priestly office have a commandment in the law to take tithes from the people, that is, from their brothers. Though these also are descended from Abraham. But this man who does not have his descent from them received tithes from Abraham and blessed him who had the promises. It is beyond dispute that the inferior is blessed by the superior. In the one case, tithes are received by mortal men, but in the other case, by one of whom it is testified that he lives. One might even say that Levi himself, who receives tithes, paid tithes through Abraham, for he was still in the loins of his ancestor when Melchizedek met him. Now, about at this time, if you're like me, your minds start wandering. You might say, how in the world does this relate to me? I don't understand this whole thing about this priestly aspect. Or is it possible maybe you are interested in this? You begin seeing that all of the Old Testament law, all of the Levitical priesthood, all that Moses and Abraham, all that the tabernacle meant, all that the temple meant, it all points forward to Jesus, who is a better priest, a better prophet than Moses, a better king than David, a better priest than Aaron, not from the tribe of Levi, but from the tribe of Judah, who received his priesthood not by lineage, but he has an eternal priesthood because he is the only begotten Son of God, who lives an incorruptible, everlasting life. It could be that the author of Hebrews, and I always say the author of Hebrews because we don't know exactly who wrote it. I mean, there are a number of hypotheses about who is the author of Hebrews, and you can read those discussions in commentary. So I just tend to say just the author of Hebrews. But I think the author of Hebrews has the same point. Maybe his readers, his listeners are wandering. They're getting all tripped up in the different requirements of the law. And he is trying to point them to this better priest. He's trying to get them to fix their eyes on Jesus, not to go back from where they came, but to realize that Jesus fulfilled all of the law, that all of the sacrifices of the Old Testament point forward perfectly to Jesus and his perfect sacrifice. And that if they have built their lives on Jesus, if they have built their faith on Christ, then they have a sure and steadfast hope from which to live their Christian lives. Angela Duckworth wrote a book, a best-selling book called Grit. And in Grit, in this book, she says that this ability to persevere and endure is one of the most essential qualities that one can have for success. Students who have grit are likely to persevere when things are difficult. One of the things that is required to have grit is to have belief that there is hope, to believe that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and that if you endure, if you persist, if you stick to it, if you don't give up when things get difficult, that ultimately you will be victorious. I think that's what the author of Hebrews is trying to instill in his listeners. He's trying to say, yeah, I know that things have been hard for you. I know that you have had tests of your faith. I know that it may seem like you are aliens and exiles in a strange and weary land. But your hope in heaven is sure. Your hope in heaven is secure. I really love what is said about Jesus and about his priesthood. As you drop down to Hebrews chapter 7, verses 26 and following, listen to the author of Hebrews' description about Jesus, and allow these words to lift the eyes of your heart up to heaven, where our inheritance is secure. Listen. For it was indeed fitting that we should have such a high priest, holy, innocent, unstained, separated from sinners, and exalted above the heavens. He has no need, like those other high priests, to offer sacrifices daily, first for his own sins and then for those of the people, since he did this once for all when he offered up himself. For the law appoints men in their weakness as high priest, but the word of the oath, which came later than the law, appoints a son who has been made perfect forever. As we work through these more difficult aspects of our faith, as we go on to maturity and wrestle with some of the more difficult passages of Scripture, and even some of the commentaries I've looked at, they have acknowledged that Christians throughout the generations have found some of the things in the book of Hebrews challenging. And yet, what a remarkable document the book of Hebrews is, that one thing after another presents a solid case that we can fix our eyes on Jesus and have hope. And in the chapters that follow Hebrews 7, he will continue to build this argument, building on the foundation that has already been laid, that the Christians who receive this letter can grow strong in their faith. It's been a challenging year, has it not? But each year has its own challenges. We have challenges to our faith. We have challenges in our families. We may have challenges at work. But if we meet each of these challenges with faith and hope and the love of God, we can be secure. I just challenge us all to continue to build on the foundation that we have. Now, if there's anything that we need to complete, if there's any aspect of our spiritual development that we need to work through, if there's some issue that just keeps coming up and up and up, it may be the Spirit telling us, saying, hey, look, you need to deal with that. You need to deal with this issue. You need to settle it. Because God has great things planned for you. You can triumph over these challenges. And you can have a steadfast hope that will endure no matter what this world can throw at you. I pray these words. I pray that the words that were written so many years ago may be as fresh for us today as they were to the original hearers. May God indeed give us this sure and enduring hope on the solid foundation that is the anchor for our soul. Let's pray. Thank you, Father, that we can lean on Jesus, safe and secure from all alarms. Thank you that we can lean on your everlasting arms. Lord, help us to press on to maturity in Christ. Give us that victorious faith that can meet any danger, toil, or snare that might be thrown against us. Hear our prayer. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.